studio a little bit differently, and I wanted just to test out everything was working okay. And the other thing was because there are certain questions I'm being asked again and again and again, just basic ones to do with how to improve your video setup. Because at the end of the day, so many people now are working from home, they're doing Zoom calls, they're streaming on Facebook, whatever. And there are a few simple things you can do just to make your setup look and sound better. Now I say that, but because I've just rearranged everything, I've got no confidence that my current setup is going to work and look and sound good. So if you are watching, I would love to hear in the comments if you is my audio coming across clear? Is the picture clear? Because like most people, for the last year, I've been working from home. So I've tried where I can to just basically improve my little home studio setup here. So over time, I've improved the picture quality, the audio quality, and I've actually just bought a new Mac Mini, the new types of Macs. So I'm running this off that now. So hopefully, if all goes well, you'll be able to see and hear everything clearly now. So let me dive into what I want to do, which is basically give a few tips which either you, or if there's somebody you know who is struggling with appearing on camera right now, and their shot in their Zoom calls isn't very good, here are a few simple tips that you can work with. But if you are watching, please say who you are in the comments, what your where you're tuning in from, and also if you have any questions. So any questions about video setup. So here specifically, I'm talking about people at home doing their, live streaming or doing their video calls. So a few simple tips coming up. So let me just check that, make sure I'm still in the shot here so I don't disappear. Now, when it comes to video, there are a few very, very simple things you can do that can make a big difference. And one thing I found really, really strange over the last year is that we've had people who are running companies, actually running countries, and they're popping up on video and they look and sound terrible. And, sometimes I understand, when lockdown first happened and you didn't have the equipment, you just did what you could. But, it's been going on for a year now. So if you are somebody who does this professionally, so maybe you're teaching, maybe you are a spokesperson, maybe you're, promoting your company, whatever you're doing through video, it makes a difference how you show up. So in the way that you would show up to a live meeting, maybe dressed nicely and caring about your appearance, it's the same thing for if you're doing something on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams, or you're doing something on Facebook Live. So here are a few simple tips. So tip number one, make sure you pay attention to the height of the camera. So whatever you're using, phone, webcam, bigger camera, whatever you're using, think about the height of the camera. So this picture you're seeing here, this is Matt Hancock. He's a government minister in the UK. And when you look at this shot, does this scream credibility? It looks like basically you need to send a rescue mission. He's being held, like kidnapped and held hostage in a basement somewhere. It looks terrible. And the most simple thing he could put right straight away is change the height of the camera. Now, the reason we're seeing so many shots like this is because a lot of people will just have their laptop, put it on a table in front of them, bend back the screen so the webcam's looking up their nose, and then they'll go live. And the problem with that, it's not very flattering. So if you're shooting down low, pointing up, it's not very flattering. And if you're not sure, is it too low? If you can see a lot of ceiling, that's normally a sign that your camera is too low. So there are a few things you could do. You could put it up on some books. You could get a standing table, just anything that you need to do. I've seen people using ironing boards. Put a laptop on an ironing board, sit down, and then you can raise that up so it's up at your eye level. So right now I'm talking to you in the lens here. If I was down low, looking up at you, that wouldn't be very flattering. The opposite is actually when the camera's too high, pointing down, because then the problem you get is, if you're a film director and you set the camera high looking it down at somebody, what are you actually saying? You're saying, well, they're not very important. So just make sure that whatever you do, the camera is at eye level. And that's probably the most common, easy to fix mistake I'm seeing with videos at the moment. So again, if you've seen any like that, let me know in the comments. The next thing, and this goes for, I mean, if you've watched the videos I've done over the years on smartphones and shooting on phones, you'll know that I'm big on audio, because audio is the thing that people notice. And I know, you might say, on social media or something, people don't turn up the sound. Well, firstly, there's auto captioning a lot now on lots of things. So getting the audio right is still important. But if you were doing something like a Zoom meeting or a webinar or it's anything like that, people do tend to turn the sound up for those things. And I mean, I had a question from somebody today, and they were wondering why their sound was so terrible on Zoom. When I asked them a little bit more about it, what came out was they were just using the inbuilt mic on the laptop, and they were playing the audio out of their own speakers on the laptop. So you've got the microphone and you got the laptop right next to each other. So essentially, you're getting just this feedback loop. So what are things like Zoom going to do? It's going to try and suppress that echo and that feedback. And then, of course, your audio becomes really, really bad. So just make sure you're not using the inbuilt mic on a laptop. And I always say the same for the phone as well. If you're on a phone, if nothing else, get those little cabled earphones you use to make phone calls and use those. I don't recommend the Bluetooth ones, by the way, but an external microphone will always be better than just the inbuilt mic, whether it be a phone, a camera, or a laptop. So what are your options? Well, I mean, a very common one is the Rode NT-USB, which is the one you see on the far left there. So Rode have got a few models, and obviously the more you pay, the better they become. But this one, very small, sits in front of you. You kind of tilt it back, pointing up at your mouth, and that will do a job for you. The one in the middle there is a Samsung Satellite. The reason it's called a satellite is, if I sort of just come back full screen again, it looks like one of those really old-fashioned satellites, the ones you had back in the day. You can kind of fold it up like that, and it comes with lots of attachments. So you can put it onto a phone, you can put it onto a computer, anything you like. And then the next one, if I go back here, is the MicMe. So MicMe has MicMe Connect, I believe it's called, and it's just a little USB plugs into your computer. So those are three that I've actually used and I really, really like. But the main thing is, even if you spend like £20, €20, $20, whatever it is, even if you spend that amount of money on a microphone, that will be massively better than just using like the inbuilt mic, because it's all about how far it is from your mouth. So you can see right now my microphone is right here. So you should, and like I say, first time I'm testing this setup, so you should be hearing me okay. But if the microphone's a long way away, you're going to have sort of issues and problems with that. So sort out your audio. It's really, really important. Sometimes I've been on training courses, online training courses, and I'm struggling to hear what's being said because it's so echoey and you're getting feedback, and it's just easy to get distracted. So you don't want those kind of distractions. Next up is lighting, and every camera needs good light, but especially something like a webcam, because webcams are generally terrible anyway. I'm just amazed that webcams have not kept pace with, like a smartphone camera or anything like that. Webcams are kind of stuck in the 70s kind of thing. They're really terrible. But if you give them some light, they'll look vaguely decent. If you give a smartphone light, it can look fantastic. And of course, any camera. If you give it good light, you will get good images. So what should you get? I mean, the ones that I recommend for people doing the kind of home office-based work is a ring light. And that's in fact what I've got on me right now. I've got a ring light. And the reason a ring light's very good is it just gives a nice, soft, kind of gentle glow. You don't need to be a lighting expert. So if you get other kinds of lights, often it's very important kind of how you position them. Well, with a ring light, it's quite forgiving. You're supposed to have the camera right in the middle of the ring light and it pointing straight at you. But even if it's not quite perfect, it just gives a nice, soft light. If you wear glasses, by the way, try and, point it down a little bit, because otherwise you'll get that reflection straight back into your eyes. You'll see the rings on your glasses. So So I'd recommend a ring light. The reason, by the way, it's got the different colors, if you look at the picture, the different colors on it, is you can change the color balance. So often they'll have a little thing you click on the front and it will change the color balance if you want it to look more kind of daylight bluey kind of color, or you want it to look more indoors where it's a bit more orangey. And I know if that's not the technical term, but that's the really simple way to explain it. And by the way, if you're just joining me, I'm just giving a few tips on how to just make your home video setup look a little bit better, and also just testing out a new setup. So if you are watching, just if you can clarify the audio and the video are coming through loud and clear, and that would be great, because you know what it's like. But the more complex you make things and you attach different things, you just need one thing to go wrong and suddenly everything falls off air. So that's lighting. Your other options with lighting, of course, you can go onto Amazon and spend about £10 on a little LED light, and that will do the job. Any light is better than nothing. And if you don't have any light at all, try and face a window or somewhere where there's some bright light. You don't want that light behind you. So let's have a look here. I've got, oh, Len. Yeah, Len is here, loud and clear. Good to hear you looking at this, Glenn. Len is in the United States, and I always admire all the kind of great locations he goes to, because he goes to these college football games, isn't it, Len? And he goes runs on the field with his 360 cameras and all this kind of stuff. So always a big fan of Len. So Len Clark, Daryl, yeah, always good to hear from you. Nick, thanks for the feedback. Yeah, so it's always good to know there's some humans out there and know that I'm being heard. Because my worst nightmare was going live and somebody's just saying, by the way, you were not hearing any audio, because then you look like a complete idiot. Anyway, I'm used to that anyway. But anyway, and let's see, I'm just going to press something there. Okay, there's one or two little glitches I do need to sort out, I have to say. What I'm using right now, by the way, is Ecamm, which I have used before, but I've just changed the way I'm setting it up. So that's why I'm running a completely different way. And that's why I was a little bit worried that things wouldn't be working. So Nick's asking, am I using a smartphone for this now? No, I'm not. I'm using a very old, cheap camera, well, cheapish camera I got off eBay, which is a Sony a5100. And the reason I did that is because I'm normally teaching smartphone stuff. So I would have my phone plugged in and demonstrating things. So I wasn't able to use my phone at the same time. So I thought, okay, I need another camera. And the Sony a5100, what's great about it, and actually I've got a slide coming up about cameras. I'll come to it in a second. Actually, let's just jump to that and I'll come back to the other one. So the Sony a5100, what's great about it is it was designed as like a mirrorless vlogging camera, but it was a terrible vlogging camera because it would overheat. So the minute you started recording about 20 minutes of footage, it would overheat. So the thing about that is maybe I actually can kind of hold one up here actually. So if I go back a bit, this is not the exact same one, but this is the kind of size you're talking about. It's a little thing like this. But yeah, it was a terrible vlogging camera. So lots of people were selling them on eBay. So I picked it up for like £200, which I know can sound like a lot of money, but for this kind of camera, it was £200. And then I got like a £50 lens put on the front of it. And that I use now as my webcam. And what that does is it frees me up to do whatever I want. I can, pick up my phone, I can demonstrate things and do anything I want to. And I'm not reliant on my smartphone. The other reason with the smartphone is obviously sometimes I do trainings which run all day. And right now, because I'm training people in different time zones, I'm literally sometimes having this situation where I'll be up at like 6 in the morning training one part of the world, and then in the evening I'll be training another part of the world. So one of the issues with the phone obviously is the battery life. So so that's why I'm not on the phone. That's a long answer to a very short question, wasn't it? Sorry about that. Dirk, good to see you on. Hello, Dirk. So that's just the camera I'm using. I can talk about that more later if you want, but let me go back to my slide. So yeah, I was talking about the lighting. The other thing is the background. And the funny thing is that I used to have like a background which I had like, stuff on a bookshelf and all that kind of thing. And then I changed my setup because I wanted to stand, because I've spent so much time doing Zoom trainings where I was sitting down. I was like losing blood circulation in my legs. So essentially what I did is I kind of moved my setup to standing up. But then like all the bookshelves and everything were too low. So I got old TV. This TV is like ancient, absolutely ancient. And I just run slides into that, and I've got another one there. But the background is really just lights. So you know those smart bulbs you get where you can actually change the color on your phone? That's what I'm using. So if I come out of the back onto the full screen, you see my background here. It's just ancient TV, less ancient TV, and then lots of this is just smart bulbs. So it just throws a light on the background. But when it comes to your background, you know, you don't want it to be too cluttered. You want to have a bit of depth if you can behind you. I mean, this is quite a small room. But, you know, I think just paying a little bit of attention to the background. I mean, lots of the backgrounds I see are bookshelves, which is fine, as long as they're kind of neat and tidy. And if you're doing anything that's branded, like if you work for a company or something, you know, do like I do, just stand by a TV or something, plug in a USB stick with the logo or whatever it is, and there you have a kind of a backdrop. So I think the background is something which is kind of very easy to do. But the reason I have the light bulb up there is that a lot of people talk about lighting the foreground, but very few people talk about lighting the background. So yeah, and again, if I was shooting this on a phone right now, it would still look good because basically I've got the light here, I've got it backlit. So yeah, but we were talking about cameras. So smartphones, I'm a big fan of smartphones and what they're capable of doing. Oh, you lost audio. I'd be interested to know whether everybody lost audio or whether that was just Len. But anyway, that's the joy of live, isn't it? Anything can happen. Yeah, I'm a big fan of smartphones. But I think the biggest value of smartphones is you're mobile. You can go anywhere. You can, you know, wherever you are, you want to make a video, you pull it out of your pocket, bam, you can shoot video. When you're stuck in a desk in an office, it's maybe not so essential. You know, you can definitely use a smartphone, but if you were doing hours and hours of calls, you might say, actually, I want to use my phone for other things. I might just get a camera. So you can get a webcam. So Nick heard me throughout. So Len, it's your problem. Okay. Don't come blaming me. Thanks for that, Nick. Yeah. And yeah, Daryl, love what smartphones do. I agree. I mean, just coming back to smartphones, the reason I love smartphones is not like because I'm a techie. It's that smartphones basically mean that anybody at any time, anywhere can make good content. And if you think about before smartphones came out, you had to remember to have a camera, you had to afford a camera, and you had to be trained up to use a camera because they're quite complicated. The thing I love about smartphones is you can just do it like that. You know, bam, you know, wherever you are, you can create content. And smartphones are so good now. If you know what you're doing, the picture quality, the audio can be absolutely fantastic. I mean, I always say people are shooting Hollywood movies on these. So definitely smartphone's an option if you're doing, especially if you're doing something that's not going to go on for hours and hours and hours. If you're going to use a webcam, you know, you get things like Logitech C920, the Brio, which is more expensive. And then the other option is to use a camera of some kind. And to get a camera as a webcam, there's two ways you can do it. One, depending on the model, people like Sony have got software that they've released during the lockdown, which you plug your camera in through USB as normal, and it will recognize that as a webcam. So that's one way to do it, but it only works on certain models. And the other one is a capture card. So a capture card is basically an adapter. So you run the HDMI out of your camera, put it into this capture card, which looks like a USB stick. You plug that into your computer, and that will fool your computer into thinking that this camera is a webcam. And that's how you do it. So, so yeah, okay. So that's cameras. And the final thing I'll mention at this point is the internet speed. So when I first went into lockdown, the biggest problem I had was like I would be doing, say, training on Zoom. And no matter what I did this side, with the, you know, the camera and the lights and everything, it was just not looking great. And also, you know, when more people join the Zoom call, sometimes it'll go a little bit wobbly. And the thing is, I'm upstairs, and the kind of the modem, the router, and everything is downstairs. So what I did is I looked at kind of different options. You know, running a cable up. You get things called mesh, which will kind of extend your kind of internet. But the one I went for was a thing called Powerline. And Powerline is, I mean, you may have heard of it, is basically it will run the internet through your electricity sort of cables. So what you do is right next to your kind of router, you take the cable out of that and you plug it into one of these sort of little boxes you see here, and you put it into a plug socket. And what that does is send the internet signal into your plug socket. Then I'm upstairs, I have a second one of those that's plugged into a plug socket here. Out of that comes a cable, and that goes into my computer. And that is how I get my internet. And the reason I say that is, even if your Wi-Fi is fast, your Wi-Fi is not as reliable as a cabled internet. So if you're at home and you're doing stuff like this, cabled internet will always be more reliable. So sometimes people say, oh, your picture looks quite sharp. And it's not, and they're always asking about the camera, which is great. But actually, if they'd seen it before I changed my internet setup, it wouldn't have been that fantastic. So the speed is what you're looking at. Now, don't forget, it's both download speed and upload speed. And if you look at Zoom, they'll say something like 2 megabits per second. I'd say you want to be more like 4, 5 and above to have a good quality stream. But think about the internet connection. And it's the same, you know, even if you are going live from out and about, like if you are going live on your smartphone and you're out and about, you've been released from lockdown and you're seeing the world, you still want to check your internet speed, because it doesn't matter how good your camera and lighting is, you need to have that internet speed. Okay, so just before I wrap up, I just want to check if there are any questions, and don't forget to follow me and post hate mail afterwards to see how it went. Yeah, any questions, any thoughts, any of your own tips that you think, as far as kind of the setup we have now, where we're working from home, lots of people having to do calls in setups like this. So let me just go back to full screen. So yeah, just checking the comments. Yep. I mean, yeah, Daryl, yeah, love smartphones, which we saw. Smartphone video makes you agile. So yeah, again, I don't see it as this thing between like smartphones or other cameras. It's kind of, what's the situation you're in? Like, how long are you going to be going live? What kit do you need? And that is the choice you make. I always say, you know, it's not about what is the best camera, it's the best workflow. So what will get you the results you need as quickly as you can. So I will wrap it up there, mainly because I have to go on to another call right now. But I hope that was useful. So just to sort of summarize what I was saying there. So let me just go back over these ones here. So get height of the camera right, get your audio right, get a decent microphone, think about your lighting. You know, a nice little ring light will do wonders. Think about your background. You know, is there a way you could light that so it looks a little bit better? Think about your camera. So either a smartphone webcam or a camera that you have an adapter for and make it work. And think about your internet speed. Because if you think about your internet speed, a lot of the other things will kind of be appreciated. If you don't do that, then actually what happens is people don't see how good your picture quality is. So thank you for those who joined us. If you've got any other questions, put them in the comments. I will keep an eye out for them. And I appreciate you tuning in. And yeah, if you have any questions, we will continue that online in the comments. All right, take care.